So in terms of actually then reporting, when it came to the first semester, we decided that we would adopt obviously the 2.0 curriculum. Given that we were teaching it, we wanted to assess to it. We didn't see that that was beneficial to our staff to do one of each. And so with that in mind, we gave them an achievement standards document where all the achievement standards were sort of broken up, and you can see sort of the through lines that go across there. It obviously works moving down as well into the different strands. Because we were wanting to be able to see on average where students would actually sort of sit. So if I went to a particular student here, we'll be able to see how we can map out, where the students, what they're actually achieving at this stage. So I can see pretty well in number at the moment that this student would be achieving between a 3 and a 3.5 on average for number. Therefore, on the 5-point scale, we'd be saying that they would be, because this student is in grade 4 at the moment, and this is the middle of semester, they would actually be achieving sort of at the level that is expected of them. When it comes to algebra, they are achieving again at the level at a 3.5, because you can see that very clearly. But for things like measurement, you can actually start to see that they're looking really well above, with one sort of difficulty in terms of reading time. But I'd say that they would be above the level in that way. We talked a lot about then the weighting, and going back to, I guess, the overviews. We could see very clearly there was more of a weighting on the number side of things. When they were looking down the page, they can see that on average we're looking around about that 3.5. But the fact that we've taught a lot more number, I was not going to push them up too high. But on the flip side, when I had students that were mainly appearing sort of further to the right-hand side, that I had every confidence that I was able to progress those students on. Since then, we've actually developed a place value and additive thinking task, which has all been mapped to the achievement standards, which will be something that we'll continue to work on, just as a bit of a maths moderation to get students to, teachers, to get teachers to see, I guess, where students are at, and sort of maybe also open up their eyes a little bit to see that some of the students in their year level, say they're in year 2, can actually be accessing a lot of the curriculum in year 3 and beyond. So I think that was really beneficial to help us there. So then, we were able to come up with a progression point. There was not a formula to it. There was a lot of conversations around this, but I think this achievement standards document was really, I guess, the crux in which teachers were able to make a judgment on the student progress, and were able to come up with their final progression point from there. So that was really helpful. And then obviously the 5-point scale allowed them to see, I guess, where students were at. So we're able to see, I guess, what was behind the mark. And I think that encouraged teachers to, I guess, know the achievement standards, not just in number, but also across the board as well. The quantity and weighting was something we said, look, we're gonna trust teachers to do the job. And I think it was a
Mm.
really important part, because we weren't going to give them a spreadsheet. We weren't going to give them some sort of formula, because there's no such thing as a formula that could work for every single year level, because the weighting and quantity of the strands were different for every year level. And
Mm.
if we gave a formula, people weren't going to do it. The PAT benchmark score, that was really important, because that meant that, like, we had kids, we were able to map that, and I was able to add some analytic cycles and actually start to go challenge some teachers and saying, what are you doing for these kids? Probably that went hand in hand with the teacher judgment was also setting up an extension program with the kids, because we're myself, Josh, and Veronica, our high abilities coordinator, were able to identify students that were achieving off the charts PAT scores. And when they were achieving that, but then we compare that with their teacher judgment data, it opened up conversations when some students weren't actually chosen for it, or nominated by teachers. We're like, oh, well, we're choosing this person because of this PAT score. And like, oh, but they don't show that all in the classroom. And I said, well, how do you know? Have you assessed them? That sort of conversations we're able to open up to. But yeah, the PAT score gave a good benchmark for them to think about. So say I was in grade 3, 4, and they got a 125. I'd already be looking at, even if they're in grade 3, I'd be looking at a lot of year 4 curriculum and seeing what they've ticked off. But I think it was a lot of it had to do with unpacking the curriculum knowledge and the achievement standards. I said you are only focusing on the achievement standards, you're assessing to that, not worrying about ticking off how many content descriptors they can do. It was a focus on nailing the achievement standards, keeping it a bit more simple. Because the achievement standards were set up with the through lines in mind, they were able to see how they tracked across, and they're able to continue to sort of progress the students in that way. And then it allowed them to look at also ZPDs for the next term or semester that came through, and it did inform planning in that way too, which I thought was good.